Welcome to StaarCast, a show about tarot, divination, and all things mystical. StaarCast is a celebration of StaarCon, the Southeastern Tarot Artist and Readers Conference. I'm Amy Mauser, and here's your host, Christiana Gaudet.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of StaarCast. StaarCon is right around the corner, January 21st through 23rd, in person in Palm Beach Gardens and online on the Excellence event management platform. With me today is a guest that you have seen before. She presented last year at StaarCon 2021, but I wanted to bring her on the show again because this year she is doing something completely different and I want to talk about it. Gita Rash, so nice to see you again.
Thank you for inviting me back. I'm so excited to be back and presenting something, like you said, completely different.
Yes.
Very excited.
It is very exciting. So we know that you're an artist and we know that you are the creator of the Mahabharata Oracle. Did I say it correctly?
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much, okay. And, since your Oracle has come out, I've noticed it is getting a lot of love. People are really excited about it. And, of course, that was your presentation at StaarCon last year.
Right.
This year, you're doing something completely different and something that we would not necessarily think that an Oracle creator would know how to do. So I am now going to turn it over to you and ask you to tell us what you're going to be doing and how you know how to do it.
Okay, so my beginnings of the occult department, occult world, started with palmistry.
Really?
It started with palmistry. That was the basic, the foundation with which everything else fell into place. And that started when I had the aha moment, the light bulb moment that I was intuitive. I didn't know what was going on. I was hearing noises. I don't know if I mentioned this before. I had voices in my head and, it got to a point where it was starting to bother me. And it was a little creepy because the voices knew what was going on. And I thought someone was following me. So I went and asked my dad. I said, I think there's some kind of demon following me. They know I've stolen the cookies and they tell me I'm going to get punished. And I did, by the way. So my dad started laughing. He asked me to explain what it was. And when I told him, he said, that's no demon following you. That is your heart speaking to you. And I thought that was a beautiful way to tell a child what I many, many years later came to know was psychic phenomena.
Wow. How old were you?
I was about 7 or 8 when this happened.
Wow. So that was so wise of your father. How did he know to say that?
Well, I was very blessed that he was so broad-minded because, his peers were not so. And I was very blessed that I was guided in the right direction because I know many people in this situation have been traumatized because they were not so guided like I was. And I guess the reason would be that my dad himself was very highly intuitive, almost himself. And he was actually an engineer by trade, very left brain, very technical, a whiz at math. But he had a vast library of books on art, philosophy, and metaphysical subjects. He had books on palmistry, numerology, astrology, and so many other things, his library was stocked. So after he explained to me, I said, do I listen to this voice? He said, that's your heart speaking to you, right? And I said, do I listen to my mind or do I listen to this other voice? And he said, always listen to this other voice because that is your heart. That is something higher than your mind. That's what he said to me all this time. So I'm very, very grateful to him. So that started my journey into metaphysical world as it is. And I was very attracted to the books on palmistry. And I started reading them at the age of 9. By the time I was 11, I was reading in public.
Wow. Now, where in the world were you at this time?
I was still in India. I was still to school. I was just a regular naughty girl getting into trouble. So, my dad thought it was great that I started reading books outside of my school books. As long as I did my homework and got good grades, that was a condition.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading up all the books between 9 and 11. It took me a couple of years to read all his books, read them over, and discuss things with him, which was wonderful because he was a very good palmist, and he would read for anybody who stopped in, just as a hobby. He was not a professional. And it was a great way to bond with him because there was a large age gap between my dad and me being the fifth born child. And so because of the generation gap, this kind of brought us closer together. We had an interest, and I started learning from him. So by the time I was 11 years old, I was reading wherever I went. People would show me their hand, ask me to read, and I did. And my fee at the time was a candy bar. So I would read a hand and get a candy bar. So I thought this was great because, Mom never let me have any sweets. So I started reading as many hands as I could, and I got a lot of candy bars. And I was thrilled. I said, this is great, But my mom wasn't so thrilled. So she eventually kind of put an end to that for the time being. But all through college and, to my work life, I've been reading hands. I started professionally only like some time ago, but I was reading just for fun for a long time.
So did your mom not like that you were reading palms, or did she not like that you were eating all that candy, or both?
I think both, because she really had a program for me and for all us kids to just go into regular academic studies and, get into a trade, a profession, hopefully engineering or medicine, because those were the only two things that they approved of back then, which was really kind of like, not of any interest to me. But, that's most of the kids of my generation were given a choice of engineering or medicine.
Which is kind of, what we think of here in the United States when we think about people from India. That's often what we think about. You're a doctor or you're an engineer. Now, right. You're an artist and, right. and a metaphysician. So certainly you did become a healer, just in a different kind of a way.
Right.
What did you study in college?
I actually did my master's in history because I was always interested in arts. And then I did my master's in business as well. And I worked in finance for a very long time.
Did you?
Yes. So I was actually, which my parents were quite happy with. They were pretty happy that I did my MBA and got a nice job and, was doing that for some time. Yeah.
Wow. So you did what your parents wanted you to.
Oh, yeah.
You never forgot the wisdom that your father gave you. And now at this time in your life, you're pretty much living by that wisdom 100%, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all wisdom and intuition and guidance. It's 200%, really.
So you started off studying palmistry. Now, I have a question, and I don't know that much about palmistry. You may know that very often when I'm doing tarot readings in person, I will ask to look at someone's hand. But like the extent of my knowledge of palmistry, I took a 1-hour class 30 years ago. And what's really and after that class, I was like, let me look at your hand. And I find that when I look at people's hands, energy comes off them, and I can read that energy. True. And I've even been hired at parties to be a palm reader at a party. I've done that, but it feels a little disingenuous for me. The people are happy, but I'm not really doing traditional palm readings. So at StaarCon, you're going to teach us some of the basics of traditional palm reading. But what I want to know is, in astrology, there's astrology from an Indian perspective, and then there's Western astrology. And there are
Yes.
similarities, but it's really two different things.
Correct.
Same with palmistry or no?
Actually, yes, because there are several schools and several styles and several different origins of palmistry. But basically, it originated in India, and then it was taken to Europe. So what happened in Europe was actually Aristotle was a big devotee of palmistry. He even gave it to Alexander the Great. But the church frowned upon it. They didn't like, as you know, divination of any kind. They discouraged palmistry, which is why it fell into disuse in that part of the world. So there was a gentleman by the name of Cairo, whose real name is Count Louis Homan, and he studied palmistry in India. And he kind of developed his own style, which is based on the Indian version. He kind of went a little bit into more of a generic pattern of palmistry, while the Indian palmistry is more traditional with a lot more details, just like Vedic astrology. It's a lot more details than Western astrology. And there are more shapes, there are more events, and, it's just a lot more in traditional Indian palmistry versus the Western, or, if you want to call it English, because Cairo was the biggest name in our modern times. So, yeah.
And so you studied Indian palmistry in India?
Yes, I actually studied both.
Really?
I have with astrology. I've studied both because I like to do a blend. Very unique. And I do the blend with astrology as well as palmistry. So I take a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then I have my own observations because I don't want to age myself, but I've been reading for a very long time. Let's say a few decades.
Right. Do you think it's fair to say, with really any divination practice, be it tarot or palmistry or anything like that, that after a period of time, we all kind of develop our own style?
Absolutely. That's why each reader is different.
Right.
Even with the tarot, each reader has their own observations that they've learned through experience from readings and from meeting people. And so they have their own version of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely agree. Each astrologer, each palmist, they may have the same basic rules and foundation, but they add their own flavor, which makes it very original.
Sure. Now, one of the things in that one palmistry class I took, one of the things that I remember that I found really fascinating is that the lines on the hand change.
Yes, they do.
And I noticed that in my own hands when I quit smoking cigarettes. My life got better. Like a lot of my lines got better when I quit smoking cigarettes.
Right. So you saw firsthand.
Firsthand.
That's right. So you noticed it, and that's absolutely true. You can extend your life, and so your lifeline, which is indicate health and constitution and longevity, will actually grow stronger.
Now, I knew a guy once who had no lifeline. He literally had no lifeline. He was very much alive. He is no longer living, and he did die young. That's true.
Okay.
But he literally had no line, and he was aware of it, and he showed it to me, and because he knew what I do, and he was like, what do you make of that? And I didn't really know what to say to him. And on neither hand, did he have that line?
Wow.
Yeah. What would you do with that?
Well, I would look for a sister line, because you have a sister line sometimes. The major lifeline may be missing, but you may have a sister line, or you may have some other lines to support life itself. So I would look for that to see, because, I have a member of my family who has a very short lifeline. And all through her youth, she would be so worried that she would die young. And both my dad and myself pointed to her that she had a sister line. And up to a certain age, she was very worried. But now she's like, okay, I know I'm going to live.
Right. If I was going to die young, it's now too late.
Yeah.
Can't die young now.
No.
So you are a tarot reader.
Right.
And you have created an oracle that you read with, I would assume.
Yes.
And you do palmistry.
Yes.
Do you ever sort of combine those things, like sit with someone and use two or all three of those things in the same session?
Yes, I do. I do. Because a lot of the times, some of the cards will clue me into looking at their hand. And I'll tell a client, can I see your hand? Like, what are we doing? And I said, I want to confirm something. So I will look at the hand to confirm something from the cards and so on. It's all cohesive.
Now, one of the things that I was told is that the lines on the side of the hand right below the pinky will predict your number of children.
Correct.
Is that true?
It is true, but they're so faint. They're so faint. Now, the major line is the line of marriage. Okay, the parallel ones to the heart line is the marriage line. And the lines, the offshoots from the marriage line that go down are the ones with the children. But they are very, very faint. And I have seen people with several children who have just one or two, lines.
Interesting.
So very faint.
Mm. Do you use a magnifying glass to?
I do.
You do.
I do.
So I know this one guy who does palmistry. And when he does it, he uses like a magic marker and actually draws lines on the people's hands while he is doing it. So you can tell who's gotten a reading with them, like if you're at a fair or something, because they've been all over their hands. Is that necessary?
I don't think so. I mean, each one has his own style. And, I'm not judging anybody, but I don't think that's necessary because if you can see, and you can see pretty well, but the magnifying lens, there's no need to mark the hands.
Right.
I don't think it is.
So at StaarCon, of course, you're going to be speaking with people who all have some interest in divination, some knowledge of divination, some professionals, some beginners. For someone who is just coming to the idea of palmistry, what would you say is, or is there? There might not be an answer to this question, but I'm curious to know what you would say that is true about palmistry that is not true about any other method of divination.
I would say that your fate is in your hands. How do you like that?
All righty then. So,
because the fate line in your hand is something that is very definite.
And so when you say that, I mean, we could take that two ways. That's like the expression, God helps those who help themselves. You could take it two ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could say your fate is in your hands, meaning you have the choice of what happens. But you could also say your fate is in your hands, meaning in that line it's written and there's nothing you can do about it.
Correct. Yeah.
Which did you mean?
50-50. You have free will. You have free will. You always have free will. And certainly some things are fated, but you can't just give up and say, this is fate. You got to, again, astrology comes into play. And Saturn says, the more hard work you put in, the more I'll reward you. So if you were to say, I'm doomed or I'm fated to do this or not get a job, and don't try and just keep standing in the unemployment line, Saturn's going to say, this is not why I put you here. I'm there so you work hard, get off your butt and try. And if you were to try, which is free will, I will reward you.
That is so beautifully said. That matches my belief system exactly, and is so beautifully said. I want to just go back before we say goodbye. I want to just go back to something you said in the very beginning. When you're a child and you're hearing these voices and you're thinking it's a demon and it's telling you will be punished. Now, your dad explained it was not a demon, but in fact, your heart. But you also said you were indeed punished. I want to know more.
Okay. So let me go back to I kind of shortened the whole story. I was hearing voices about other people at first. They were telling me about fun things, neighbors, what they were doing, what they were saying. And I actually thought everybody was getting those messages. So I didn't think there was anything special or unusual or unique. It was certainly not different. They were just saying like when the kids were talking, teachers were talking, and those things would happen. And I didn't think anything of it. But then when they started getting personal and telling me things about me, that's when I thought it was a little scary because, who saw me steal cookies from the cookie jar in the kitchen? Nobody saw me do that. I thought I was going to get away with it. So some of the things they said were very helpful. Things like my missing homework, your homework is, your satchel is underneath this couch or that couch, and I would go and find it. That was very cool to get those kind of messages. But to get a message like, okay, Mom, don't think Mom will not find out you stole those cookies. She will, and you will get punished. That's when I thought somebody was following me because I planned the cookie stealing very well. Nobody was home when I did it. There was no way anybody saw me. And I had a very sweet tooth as a child. And there were days I ate just sugar. So, my mom had curtailed it quite a bit. And I don't eat sugar at all now, which is funny. But it got to be a problem with, my sugar addiction. So I know, and I planned it, and nobody saw me. So how could anybody know? And I was found out, and I was punished, and that's what got me. I said, no, I got to get to the bottom of this. And of course, based on the fairy tales I was reading, I thought there was some boogeyman, watching me. That's what I thought, because I was about 7, 8 years old, and I didn't know any better. So that's what got me into everything.
That's funny. So we are really looking forward to your class at StaarCon. I'm particularly looking forward to it because, all these years I've been looking at people's hands. Now I maybe will learn more traditionally what it is I'm seeing.
Right.
So that's wonderful. And, one of the things we really want to do at StaarCon is have a wide variety of topics. We are certainly a tarot conference, but we're really here to celebrate all divination. And so I'm really grateful to you for bringing palmistry to StaarCon. And we will look forward to seeing you in January.
It's my pleasure. I can't wait to be there.
Yes. Thank you so much, Gita Rash.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for StaarCast. For more information about our annual conference, visit us online at starcon.com. That's StaarCon.com. We are looking forward to seeing you in January.